So I want to do this video, right? And I want to talk about a couple of things that I've noticed, especially when it comes to like jobs and all of this. So I've told you guys that once I started realizing that we lived in a simulation and these little Sims were just simming away, doing it on purpose to bother me, I started working online. Granted, I work in my house. I don't make as much as I was making when I was working like in schools, obviously. And even what I was making in as far as like what Europe is concerned, it was still not a lot, but for Spain it was a lot. So the jobs that I got online jobs, some in Asia, some in America, some teaching English, some teaching like reading and tutoring, right? So one of them is I guess consistent, and I only work in the evenings about an hour and a half. No, a two, is it? No, wait. I work 2 hours and a half, all right? When I went to get the job, they told me like, oh, you have to be flexible to be able to work like all these hours. And in the end, they only gave me 2.5 hours, as if trying to, again, curtail how much I would make, thinking maybe that I was only going to stick to one job. Now, one thing that I learned from the time I was in Barcelona, especially when I had to, I didn't have papers, right? So because I didn't have papers and I had heard a million horror stories from a lot of friends of mine who worked in babysitting, who worked in cleaning, right? A lot of times what a lot of the people, especially Latin American people, would do is that they would invest all their time in one employer and just hope that that employer would do their papers for them. Sometimes they did after working them to the bone, and sometimes they really just didn't. And at the last minute, I have stories of people who even went and started getting their paperwork done, and then they didn't want to do their papers for them, okay? And then that becomes a different kind of legal process to get your papers. But I've heard all the stories. When I was working, mind you, when I first returned back to Barcelona, because in the beginning, when I went the first time in 2007, before I had my daughter, I was just doing English and teaching. But when I came back the second time, I had kids. So I had to teach English. I had to clean houses. I cleaned houses as well, babysitting, okay? And then finally I started going again into like schools and like doing other like kid activities. So when it came to like cleaning houses and stuff like that, like thank goodness I mean my house might be a mess sometimes, but like I can clean really well, right? And so when I recall, depending on the type of family, because you got those like smug rich people families, and then you got the ones that are more like new money, let's call it, in Barcelona and all that, and then you had the expat families, which are like American British, and like it was like completely different ball game, right? For the most part, just in case you don't know, like most of the time Americans and British families, like they just kind of do what we call in Spanish, like they just clean the surface. If that makes any sense. They just clean the surface. They do a touch up. But a lot of like Spanish families, especially, they want deep cleaning. They want you to go in the fridge. They want you to do a lot of like stuff, right? So anyways, when you worked with like student families, I remember like I always had to be very like attentive to the couples, right? Because couples were always tricky. If one person hires you, then you know that person hired you and you're only dealing with that person. But when you have a situation where it's like couples, it's always tricky because like maybe one person might like me out of the couple, like the wife might love me, but maybe the dad for whatever reason wants somebody else from another country who maybe he feels he can like push around. So like I've had situations where like people would like throw things on the floor or dirty things on purpose. Sometimes I think that they would do it because they wanted to make sure you had work to do, even though it was interesting because like I would look at the house and I would say like they're like dirtying things on purpose. Like when you get there, like even like when you get there, it's like they forget and they want to like do. And then like there were other parts of the house that maybe like if you didn't waste your time doing that, like you could have cleaned it and made it look good. But whatever, it doesn't matter. So I've had situations where people like throw glass or throw things. They throw money to see if you'll take the money. They throw glass to see if you've cleaned under certain areas. They will do like lots of tricky stuff. A lot of the rich people, like they do these kind of things to like bother people. Person like this, like they're looking for like what I call a cha-cha. They're not looking for a actual like just a come in clean maid. Like no, they want like a little in-house like slave kind of maid. And a lot of my friends who are from like Central America, they would like really stay in these jobs, and I would tell them, don't necessarily like unless you have to, don't live in, and try your best to get different customers, like get different clients. Don't just put all your eggs in one basket, okay, depending on this one person, like their god, to decide if they're going to give you a residency or whatever. So my strategy always when I was in Barcelona is like I worked for multiple families. I taught English, and especially like teaching English. I was like, I remember like I would be going up and down in the metro. I learned the metro really well from like, because I would have like classes like all across Barcelona. As I became more popular within certain areas, then I had all of the customers or clients in the same area, and then it was like easy because I didn't have to travel, and it would save time and money. But the point is, I learned this idea that especially when you're not working, like, obviously if you're working in a school, you're making a decent amount, then, you have all your eggs in one basket because you're like in your retirement job, right? And then that's when people they become very competitive. They start backstabbing the coworker because they feel like this job is the make and all, break and all job, right? So I always advise people to always have multiple jobs or multiple side hustles or whatever you want to call it, so that you are not depending on one person who's going to try to act like a god over you. Okay. That's number one. So obviously, this company, and I've told you many shady stuff that they do. Mind you, this is an $8 an hour job. And even in the Matrix, an $8 an hour job where you're doing everything, like you can see it. And I can see like they purposely, like I look at it from this perspective. One, it's because I can see through it. So they know I can see through it. So they do things on purpose to like bother you. But I think about people who maybe aren't awake, and they do those and apply those same kind of things to just make the job difficult. It's like, even if it's like an $8 job, like practically easy as pie, they want to try to just do things to irritate you, to drain your energy, to make it feel like this work, like you need to feel horrible before you get this little energy exchange from us. Okay. And that's period. It's the most easiest job in the world. It's like 10 minutes talk to one person, 10 minutes talk to another person, free talking in English, just correct their mistake. The easiest thing in the world. But they try to like do shenanigans with the files, do shenanigans with your mic, do shenanigans with all sorts of stuff, right? So once I saw that, especially this job was like doing shenanigans, they don't have, it supposedly has a base in America, but they don't have a page where other workers can come together and talk, which I'm always weary of because I like to know other people's opinion. They've afterwards, they've tried to expand my schedule. And I've said no. Mind you, right now we might be like, like at like, let's say, down in our funds because the summer is coming, and the other jobs that I was really working in that were like giving me more classes, obviously they still put parasitic kids on purpose, or they were controlling them with their little, I guess, remote to make the kids act up with me. And like, again, it's summer, so these classes are emptying out. um but the point is that like I didn't just stay in one. I went because I started noticing, so I went to another one. That one's starting to look shady too. Then I went to another one, and I just make sure I have like 4 or 5. I mean, just keep the matrix busy, because regardless, there's going to be infiltration that they're going to probably put parasitics in there anyways. But besides that, you're not depending just on one. That's the most important thing. So now that the summertime is coming, besides the one I do in the evening that is like in Asia that they try to do shenanigans, right? I would never ask them for more hours, and it would make more sense. Anybody would say, well, look, you already have that job, just expand the hours. Like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So when they're doing these things, like right now, my cat, like, we got 4 cats now. I just brought a new cat in. She's like spayed, but my male cat is not spayed. So he's just confused as to why all the women cats in this house are like rejecting him. And sometimes he's like stressed out, and he starts like meowing, and he likes to do it sometimes when I'm working. And I mute it now because I do my job the right way. I'm not concerned so much as the job itself in term, but I'm a person who just believes, especially after like seeing all the shenanigans that are done, I'm just doing my job. So like, just out of common courtesy, you mute it, and you just make sure it's not a bother, or no one could say like, oh, that they can't hear, that it's not a disruption, right? But like the Sims have been trying to do things like to purposefully, I think, like say things like, oh, it's noisy. And there's no noise because I'm muting it. And they're just doing things like trying to play on things that they know that maybe like it makes you anxious because you're like, this darn cat just starts going off, But the idea is, I'm not anxious about the job, because the job, the same way I arrived to France and I did not have a job when I arrived, the same way I got a job and now I have multiple jobs, I will always have a job, okay? Because that's how the God blesses me. So the idea is, and I might have to do a part 2, I'm going to go into the second thing that I noticed now that I decided to apply for multiple jobs, and how you can see the matrix trying to micromanage. But I'm going to make a part 2 for that. going back to, this is part two of keeping jobs in the Matrix, and how like the Matrix tries to like make even the most crappiest low paying job that should be like easy peasy, just like stressful on purpose to try to drain you. So um again, like I said, so number one, you will never see the jobs I'm working now. I can tell you about them, but I do not link them on LinkedIn because I want to talk about them. And trust me, I have paper trails that the minute that they try to like make up an excuse, or if I get let go, that I will like be putting on blast. But anyways, back to what I was saying. The idea is, like the thing is, I'm from New York, okay, and I'm a proud New Yorker. This is just to go a bit in the ego and not so much like out there in the spiritual side. But we work, okay. So I've been working since I was like 13. Okay, I do not have a problem with that. The idea is that what I will not do is, like I said, put all my eggs in one basket. So this job, I see that they're shady and they're like kind of like weird like that. I'm not gonna like to pick up a bunch of hours with them and have them play God over, like make me feel like, don't ever let anybody do that. Like, and on the contrary, I'm going to tell you now how they've micromanaged it. And I noticed it yesterday. When I noticed it yesterday, I see they gave me another tutoring class like session. So what I noticed is, now mind you, the one in the evening that I do, that's just consistently, like I said, 2.5 hours every night, $8 an hour, right? That's nothing. It's like $200 a month. And then remember, I use euros, so just keep that in mind, that gets lower. So then I applied to, over these months, I have like 3 other tutoring jobs that are like from the States that are with kids, right? So one, in theory, finish, and then they happen to, for next week, give me, just for like 4 days, they gave me 4 classes. And then when I noticed the weird thing, then they added another 4. So let's just say I work a whole hour, okay, for 4 days, okay, and that's like about like $12 a class, right? Then the other company that I had joined like months, that like they haven't given me anything, and I thought they were weird because I would notice they would give substitutions right at the same time when I had the other class, the job at the night, like as if they wanted me to like mess up or like cancel the other one to give reasons to, like, I don't know. But I would never do that because obviously, just from a point of integrity, right? If you are working certain hours, there will be hours when it should be, you would think, in the real world, that would just be there, and I was just using that job to pick up any kind of substitutions, just in the case that in the case of the other 2 jobs, that there were no classes or whatever. So mind you, the one platform gave me from June 1 to 1st to the 4th, right? Okay. Mind you, the other one gave me all of these days, but just 1 hour, or right, or 20, not 1 hour, like a half an hour, from the 6, 7, 8, 9, 13, 14, 15, 16, 20, 21, 22, 23. Precisely on the 12th, then the other company gave me just a half hour. But it's very interesting that, like, I was looking because, when I went, I wanted to make sure that I just want to check how many in one day, whatever. It's as if it's like micromanaging, like one class a day for you, plus whatever you make in the evening, right? Just exactly. Which, when I saw that, what I don't, when the Sims were like acting weird and they're making these things and they're like making it seem, because you have to understand the perspective, and I understand the perspective. When you work for big companies and you're working and you're getting paid a lot of money is everything to you. I can live off of bread soup, okay? I can live off of bread soup and go collect river water. Let's just put it that way. Money means nothing to me in that sense. Money is important to feel comfortable. Money is important to get certain things done. But money is not my God. My God is Jesus. Okay? My God is the Christ. I am with wrong team that you're playing these games with, okay? So the point is, I said to myself, no, this should be, when you have these situations where you're noticing these kind of things with the job. If you ever feel like you are in a situation where you think that your job is like the make or all or break all, and you need to get a side hustle, you need to find other ways to maintain yourself. No one should have that much power over you at all. So I already have, I always try to do, when I was in Barcelona, like I said, I would do teaching English, different different clients, not all just depending on one job in one area. So here it's different because on one hand, like, I mean, I don't know how to explain it to you. Like, I can go out in public, but because the Sims are, there are a lot of parasitics running around. I like to preserve my energy. I would like to work from home. I'd like to stay home. I like the idea of being close and watching my kids, even if it means that I make less. I like to know what my kids are doing. I like to see them. I like to be here when they come home for lunch. I like to walk them to school. I did already those days where the babysitter was with them all evening. I did those days where, even when we were in the Pueblo, where they had to walk by themselves, and my for my daughter's 5th birthday, my eldest daughter had to throw the birthday party because I was going to get there late, and I didn't get to experience her little birthday party. I mean, but I was making a lot of money so that we can go on vacation and do these things. So I don't care so much. Like, I mean, you do want to have, obviously, the freedom to do all of these things and to enjoy parties and to go vacation, all this, but at the same time, I will not, again, and I just feel like that's completely against everything, try to have a situation where anyone's trying to dominate. Like, at this point, when you're in a job, you should feel like they can replace you any day, and if they do, you should have that much trust and surrender in God that you know that whatever it might be for your good, it might be for your benefit. Maybe you do need to let go of that job. Maybe these kind of things that happen are the motivation for you to start looking into how to be an entrepreneur and do your own stuff, right? So I already have my page. Besides, like, if you go on Sacred Mind Shift, that's the woo spiritual stuff. But I honestly, like, I do books for kids, right? So I do Miss Dahlia's Reading Station in YouTube, and you can always go to my YouTube and you can see that I've started that in 2023, that I started reading stories for kids. I started doing this and that. And I could definitely just teach English online on myself, because even working for these companies, working for these reading companies, and these, like, I just see the style that they do it. And besides that, it's really not that difficult. And I can do that and possibly even better for personal clients. You know what I mean? Not just following a script, because obviously these are like general prepared classes. And if you're teaching a private student, you can modify it and you're in charge, right? And you're setting the prices. So the thing is, it would just be, obviously, the discomfort is having to pull in your clients, right? Versus when everything is all there prepared for you. But like I said, it doesn't mean that I'm going to just be like, oh, I'm going to just quit all the jobs, whatever. But it's giving me more of that feeling of motivation of, like, when I have that situation of, like, pushing harder and doing my own thing. So it's going to backfire anyways with the Matrix, because when you're micromanaging how much I'm going to make, is like, on one hand, like I said, especially when you're a targeted individual, or they try to like keep you in poverty, but then they're like giving you like pittance, because I guess they want to, I don't know, they want you to still see the value in the money. Like, it's a mind play that is so incredible that it's unbelievable. So it's all a game. It's all a mind game thing with this, trying to give money a value above the status of your own happiness, above the status of your own comfort, and all of these kinds of things. I'm just putting that out there. So I just wanted to say that, so I noticed that pattern very clearly. You never know, like, whatever, okay? But it's just kind of like something that, when I see things like that happening, or when I feel those kind of insecurities about a job, first thing I do is I try to be more independent of that job. And people should try to do that as well, especially, a lot of the clients, some of the clients are really good. When I speak to them in the evening, again, they're from different parts, a different part of Asia. One of the concerns is that they talk about is that they're worried that AI will take their jobs. Well, then that means that you should be trying to find things that you can do that AI cannot do. AI cannot bake. AI cannot do other, like, photography sometimes. Like, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say? The day that there's a blackout, there'll be no AI, but we should always know how to do things with our hands or have some kind of skills. That's all I'm just trying to say. And don't let these jobs try to run you like you are their little sheep, because they get a kick out of that. They get a high of that. And it's worse that it's other coworkers also who participate in it. It's not always just like the boss figure, but other coworkers who are also a little frustrated with their lives. Maybe they might have a little bit position higher than you or whatever, and they do the same thing. So just letting you guys know that, keep yourselves always free.